Hey everybody, here we are. It is Overland 160. Man, we got a lot of stuff to cover. And yes, you'll see us here at the Wilderness. We're going to be at Spotsylvania. We're going to be at North Anna, Cold Harbor, and probably a few other places as well. I'm Gary Adelman. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. And we got Dan Davis. We got Chris White. We got Andy Poulton behind the camera. We got Sarah Byerly. And we'll have some other special guests along the way. But before we can get into Overland 160, it's important to note that there's a lot of 160th going on this year, and most of them are pretty well connected. Now, we've already missed one, of course, or two. The first one is O'Lusty. That's an engagement in North Florida. Doesn't result in a whole lot of the change of the situation. But then you've got 5 movements going on there. This is an intentional movement by Union forces to stretch the Confederacy, and 3 don't really come as much. The first of which we've also already missed. That's the Red River Campaign. That's going to culminate in the Battle of Mansfield. But then you've got 2 other smaller movements. They're not going to also come to a whole lot. You've got a movement in the valley that results in the Battle of Newmarket, and you've also got movement between Richmond and Petersburg under Butler. And that leaves 2 of the big grand movements, and these are the 2 we know about. A massive movement toward Atlanta under Sherman and his group of armies, as well as, of course, the Overland Campaign, probably the most persistent and certainly the most costly campaign of the entire Civil War. And that results in a lot of other things happening later in the year. You're going to have, all these other engagements around Richmond, resulting in battles at Chaffin's Farm and Newmarket Heights. You're going to have a movement around through the valley to Washington that will result in the Shenandoah Campaign, Winchester, Tom's Brook, Cedar Creek, Fisher's Hill. And then you're going to, after Atlanta, have a movement of Hood's forces, of course, up toward engagements at Spring Hill, Franklin, and Nashville. So you've got a lot. I even forgot some. What about the Mobile Campaign? It is all part of a grand movement as the Confederacy shrinks. So we're going to be covering the Overland here, but it's connected to other things. And with no further ado, let me bring on Dan Davis. He is going to bring us up to the Overland Campaign. Dan, take it away, man.
Thanks, Gary. Hello there, everyone. Now, to set us up for the opening engagement here in the Wilderness, and to give a good idea about what's going on, you got to go through the winter of 1863 and into 1864. Robert E. Lee is going to spend the winter in Orange County. That's where we're standing right now, just off to the west of where we are here at Wilderness Tavern. With his Army of Northern Virginia, Lee's going to have about 60 to 65,000 men available for the spring campaign. Across the Rapidan River in Culpeper County is the Army of the Potomac under George Gordon Meade. Meade's going to have roughly about 120,000 men to put into the field against Lee. But Meade is also going to have one other individual with him. That is the new General-in-Chief, Ulysses S. Grant. Grant had been promoted to the rank of Lieutenant General in March of 1864. He had initially planned of directing those grand movements that Gary had talked about from Washington, but he recognizes that the key theater will be here in Virginia. So he decides to make his headquarters in the field with Meade. And as things go along, the relationship between the 2 commanders is going to be tested, to say the least, over the course of the month of May and into June. Now, Grant decides that he is going to obviously move the Army of the Potomac out of Culpeper. He's going to cross at Germanna Ford and Ely's Ford on the Rapidan River, and he's going to move into the area that we're standing in, known as the Wilderness. It's about 75 square miles. It stretches from Orange Court House back to the east to Fredericksburg. Now, Grant does not want to fight a battle here in the Wilderness. He wants to get through this area as quickly as possible and potentially fight Lee somewhere off to the west, closer to his winter encampment. The movement's going to begin on May 3rd and into May 4th. The Army of the Potomac is going to roust itself from its winter encampment and begin moving down to the fords. Now, this is exactly where Lee wants to fight Grant, if he can. He knows he can't cover all of the fords because he does not have that many men to cover that amount of real estate. So he decides to set up tripwires here in the Wilderness, if you will, to give warning of any federal movements and then react accordingly. But this is where Lee wants to fight the battle. This is where he wants to engage the Army of the Potomac. Moving through this dense secondary growth force is going to be very difficult, very cumbersome for the Army of the Potomac. So Lee wants to catch him here. Fighting in the Wilderness negates Grant and Meade's superiority in manpower and artillery. And as soon as the Army of the Potomac gets underway, Lee is going to begin moving out from his encampments, moving along the Orange Plank Road and along the Orange Turnpike eastward to meet the Army of the Potomac. Now, and to get us into the battle, I'm going to bring on Chris White.
Thanks, Dan. I got to run uphill. I have Mike. Thank you. Thanks everybody for watching. We really want to thank you for watching this video, and all of these videos are brought to you by the members of the American Battlefield Trust. We hope you'll head over to battlefields.org, check out everything that we do, and of course click that like button, click that subscribe button here on YouTube, and please share this with your friends and with your family so we can keep getting more views on these videos and get more support out there in the public for the history that we do. So as Dan mentioned, we are out here in the wilderness. Why do we call this the wilderness? Simply, this was an area of second and third growth forest by the time of the American Civil War. In the 1700s, the first settlers that come to this area are led here roughly by a guy named Alexander Spotswood. Spotswood sets up a settlement about 7 miles down the road from us called Germanna. He brings Germans with him. That's where you get the Ger, and then it's named after Anna, Queen Anne, Germanna. So that's where the Germanna colony comes from. It's also called, where we're standing, Spotsylvania County. Spotsylvania means spots, woods. Sylvania means woods. Spots means spots. So that's where we get woods from. Now, the area out here in this wilderness, as we look around a little bit, is a little bit more open. Where we are standing today, we're looking towards a private farm, even though we're on National Park Service land near the Wilderness Tavern. But this was an area that was virgin forest whenever the settlers come here. But when they arrive, they figure out there's a lot of iron in this area, there's gold, and there's different ores that they can bring up out of the ground. To smelt those ores, what they're going to do is they're going to chop down the trees, create furnaces, and use the trees to create charcoal so that they can fuel their furnaces and heat their furnaces. Now, by the time of the American Civil War, when we come out here, we have the second and third growth forest that has grown up wildly through here. One man will say the wilderness is a generally level, barren, covered with matted growth of scrub oak, stunted pine, sweet gum, brush, and dogwood. The surface of the earth is indented occasionally with low basins through which rainfall, washing from higher margins, cuts through long gullies and often deep and wide washouts. Another name for this area was the poisoned fields, because the problem that they have with growing anything, especially like tobacco, we're a little too far north for that, is that the soil up here isn't right. It's not conducive to creating great cash crops like you see throughout the deeper part of the South. One of the reasons that the soil is not as good is because of the clear cutting of some of the forests around here. Once you take those trees away, the topsoil washes away down to the Rapidan and Rappahannock rivers, and then you're left with not so great soil up here, so that creates a problem. But the wilderness itself, in May of 1864, is somewhat of a small neighborhood. We would have had throughout the years a number of roads cutting through here as early as the 1700s. We'll have the Germanna Road, which will lead you out towards Germanna. Today, that is the Orange Turnpike. Orange Turnpike is modern day Route 3. The lanes that you're looking at today are the eastbound lanes. They were not here at the time of the American Civil War. That median that you're looking at there is much more raised up. And then on the other side, the north side of the road, will be the westbound lanes, which is roughly the historic trace of the road that would lead you out towards the west. We'll also have the Orange Turnpike coming through here, and this is the original road trace to the Orange Turnpike. The Orange Turnpike was created by the Swift Run Turnpike Company, and it would have ran right through here, down through some private property, and then eventually up onto some National Park Service land. And this road would lead you in 1810 out towards Orange Courthouse as well. This road today, this intersection, is not the modern intersection. The modern intersection that's carrying all this traffic up to here is about a quarter mile down below in the Wilderness Run Valley down below us. So we have a number of roads that would lead you through this area. We also have a small neighborhood. Behind me would be Elwood. Elwood was the time of the Civil War, the Lacey Plantation, one of two homes that Horace Lacey owns in this area, known as the most dangerous rebel in the county to Abner Doubleday. We'll also have the Woodville Plantation to the north of us. We'll have Orange Grove, another plantation today that is out in Lake of the Woods. We'll have Dowdall's Tavern, the Wilderness Church. So there are a number of elements out here in this wilderness. But in May of 1864, when the head of the Union Army arrives here, this will be the headquarters section for the Union 5th Army Corps, commanded by Gouverneur Kimball Warren, West Point class of 1850. He is the vanguard of the Union Army, and his men will start to push down the original road trace out towards the west, kind of establishing a blocking position about a mile from where we're standing, and that's where we'll go for our next video at a place called Saunders Field. We'll also have more Union soldiers off to our east, about 5 miles from here, to a place called Chancellorsville. That's the Union 2nd Army Corps. And then all the way back up the Germanna Plank Road, or the Germanna Turnpike, also known as the Orange Turnpike. That is going to have the 6th Corps, the 9th Corps. We'll have horsemen. We'll have 3,500 supply wagons. This will be the main thoroughfare for the Federals. They all come here to the Wilderness Tavern, and then they're going to start to turn down this way. And they'll also take another road, that Parker Store Road. And this area that we're coming into, this is the 3rd time the Federals have come through here in the American Civil War on a major campaign. The first time was Chancellorsville a year prior. The second time was the Mine Run campaign that took place in the winter of 1863. And now here we are, a 4th time coming through this wilderness, a dense second growth forest, 70 square miles. And it's not a great idea to come here. But here we go for the 3rd time. Because Ulysses S. Grant wants to get at Robert E. Lee's forces. Lee's men have been ensconced behind fortifications known as Mine Run since November of 1863. They've then spread out across the countryside to lessen the impact of their army and to be able to bring in supplies from places like Gordonsville, Virginia, Orange, and other sites. And now Lee's army will have to play to the tune, at least initially, as Grant's 118,000 men come down here to meet his 64,000 or so men. And before I bring Gary back on, I just want to point out where we're standing is beside one of the last remaining pieces of the old Wilderness Tavern. The Wilderness Tavern dates back all the way to 1775. In 1775, there was a small tavern complex out here. It will grow over time. At one point, there are at least 7 buildings in this area. The tavern itself would have sat inside of what is today the median. The structure will burn on more than one occasion. And then whenever they expanded these lanes in the 1970s, the modern day Route 3, what was left of the old foundations of the old buildings, including a smokehouse, log house, shed, the old tavern site, were basically obliterated and are inside of that modern day median. There was one remaining structure, which we have a picture of that we'll put up here, that burned. I think it was in 1977. It went up in flames. Unfortunately, we lost that. So we have this piece of structure here. This was owned by William Sims and his wife Catherine at the time of the American Civil War. By 1866, this place is going to look like a ghost town, and then it would look out. There'll be a picture where you could see out in that direction towards Elwood. We'll put a picture of Elwood up there, which was the large stately home of James Horace Lacey, technically his summer home. His main home was over at Chatham, 17 miles away across the Rappahannock River in Fredericksburg. But this will be the headquarters, or the head of the Union Army of the Potomac. It's going to start arriving here on May 4th. The optimal timetable to move through this area is 1 day, but those 3,500 supply wagons means they have to come through here and spend an extra day in the wilderness. That gives Robert E. Lee time to start moving down parallel roads, the Orange Turnpike, the Orange Plank Road, to meet him in the wilderness, nullify Grant's numbers utilizing those road systems, as well as Mother Nature and the topography, and that is going to play into Lee's hands, at least for the first 48 hours of the battle here in the wilderness and the opening of the Overland Campaign.
Thanks, Chris. Man, you didn't even know what I was going to say, and you set me up pretty well. So Chris mentioned some of the images that we're showing you. Note this, that first of all, in the Civil War, after 1861, it's only the North that has photographers in the field. And that means that they're going to be taken by Northern photographers of Union subjects behind Union lines. Therefore, you're going to see a photo of the Union crossing at Germanna Ford. There's a couple of those. And then you'll see some photos of Fredericksburg and dead at Spotsylvania. All of those are within Union lines. The actual photos that we're showing you that might show some of the ruins of Wilderness Tavern and the terrible skeletons in the wilderness and a whole bunch of other ones that look a lot grittier. Those are taken in April of 1866 by Reed Bontico. So what you're seeing are things behind Union lines during the war, and then afterward, people mopping up and coming to these inaccessible positions. So I just wanted to note that. Chris?
Yeah, and one photograph I'm going to put up here is actually from 1921. This was the headquarters area of the United States Marine Expeditionary Force, who come marching down through here, led by Smedley Butler, a 2-time Medal of Honor recipient known as Old Gimlet Eye. He comes to Wilderness, he goes to Antietam, he goes to Gettysburg. He utilizes these Civil War battlefields because he needs a campaign, basically a press campaign, to keep the United States Marine Corps intact. After World War I, We're trying to cut the budget. What are we looking at within the War Department? Maybe we can get rid of the Marines. Butler doesn't like this. He marches his men down from Quantico. There would have been out in front of us an observation balloon. They put a silhouette of a battleship out there. They attack the battleship. They lay smoke screen, and all of this out here would have been the United States Marine Corps encampment. And he takes it one step farther. He invites congressmen, senators, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, Jean Lejeune, and of course, Warren Harding, the President of the United States, who drove his own car here and got into a fender bender with a local.
You know what? And the guy's name is Smedley Butler. And then he has a cool nickname as well. Y'all, thanks for this awesome opening. We hope you follow our Overland Campaign coverage. Make sure you download our Overland Campaign app and watch our Overland animated map. Thanks to you all. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the wilderness.
Hello, this is Trace Atkins. To stay up to date on all the latest and coolest videos, please subscribe to the Trust YouTube channel. Preserve, educate, inspire.